Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Amber Madden, and I'm a licensed counselor. I specialize in eating disorders and obesity. I am also the owner and operator of Madden Wellness Counseling, a practice that helps people stop feeling crazy around food. So that's what I'm here to help you with today. I want to talk about today food cravings because I work with a lot of people that tell me that they have these intense food cravings and that they feel like if they don't give in to them that they're just going to, they're just going to die basically. Not really, but you know what I mean. So these food cravings tend to be what causes a lot of sabotage with people and their goals and their health goals if they're trying to lose weight or they're trying to get fit. And they constantly feel like they have these cravings that derail them. So let's talk about food cravings for just a minute. Are food cravings real? And yes, I would say that they are real. When we think about anyone that has that's experienced some type of craving before, it is an intense feeling. So in what I would describe it as a physiological response. So it's something that we're thinking about and then it happens in the brain and it maybe triggers different things in the brain, but then you also experience things physically. Some people feel like that they just can't sit still, that they're having a lot of anxiety from it. They get stressed out. They maybe even kind of get shaky because they want the food so much, or they even feel like that they can taste the food in their mouth. So all of these things are both a psychological response and they're also a physical response too. So the one thing that I'll talk to my clients about with cravings is to know that cravings are proven that they do not last very long. Most of the time, cravings will subside after only just a few seconds or a few minutes. And so the trick is to try to find a way to manage these food cravings or prevent food cravings from happening in the first place. So I'm going to talk to you today about 3 common food cravings that people have, as far as not the types of foods, but what thoughts come into play with food cravings and the most common types and how to prevent them from happening. So one of the first things that happens with food cravings is a lot of times it's tied to hunger. So again, people get really, really hungry and then they feel like that if they don't have this certain food, if they don't have that cinnamon roll from Cinnabon, that there's nothing else that's going to satisfy this hunger, that's the only thing that's going to work. So hunger comes into play. And when we get overly hungry, that tends to be when we also get the most worked up over food. This is again back to almost an extinct what's the word? An instinctual response to food. It's our body's way of telling us that we do need to eat because we're so hungry. So I ask people to think about a hunger scale. Asking yourself from a scale of 1 to 10, how hungry am I right now? 1, I'm not hungry at all. I couldn't even think about eating another bite. To 10, I'm so hungry that I'm going to eat whatever's in front of me as quickly as possible. I have to get food now. So what you don't want to happen is to let yourself get to 10. So it's really, really good if when we eat that we do actually feel a little bit hungry, because that's how we create this physical response to hunger in our bodies, and we know that when we're supposed to eat is when we feel hungry. So letting yourself be at about a 5 or 6 on that scale is probably a really good idea. That way you're hungry enough that you need to eat and it's time to eat, but you also are not so starved or you're not so obsessed with the thoughts of eating food right now that you can't make a responsible decision about what food you want to eat. So the way to do this sounds simple, but just make sure you're eating properly throughout the day. So make sure you're getting enough food so that you don't let yourself get to that number 10. And one way to do this is by feeding your body healthy, fibrous foods throughout the day that's going to fill you up with not very many calories or with low calories, and it's going to keep you satiated throughout the day. The next thing I want to talk about is deprivation. So people tend to deprive themselves sometimes of food, especially if they're on a diet. This is one of the reasons why diets tend to not do very well and why people struggle on diets, because they create in their mind this idea that there are good foods and there are bad foods, and I can't ever have the bad foods. So if I tell you right now to not think of a purple elephant, I bet you just thought of a purple elephant. So that's the same thing that happens when we deprive ourselves of food. So if you tell yourself that I am not going to eat any more chocolate, I guarantee that you're going to want to eat chocolate 10 times more now. And it's probably going to be really, really hard for you to get it off your mind. So this is why I often tell clients to not make foods good or bad. Because foods aren't good or bad. Foods are there for us to appreciate, for us to enjoy. And really it's more about just finding balance with those foods. So don't make any foods off limit. Enjoy foods, mostly healthy ones. The things that we consider with nutritious vegetables, lean meats, legumes, those types of things. And then have a treat every now and then. There's nothing wrong with that. We don't want to deprive ourselves to the point that we get to where that's all we're going to think about anymore. So that's how we prevent that. The last one I want to talk about is emotions. And so this is a big one for a lot of people because I think a lot of people would even consider themselves emotional or stress eaters. You've probably heard those terms before. And so what we're talking about here is that people that sometimes will eat in response to an emotion that they're feeling. And usually the emotion is a negative emotion. So if someone feels stressed out, they will turn to food because food ultimately does create a chemical response in our brains that alleviates stress. And so that's the problem here, is that it does work temporarily. But it does also sometimes lead to more stress because then we start stressing about that we ate foods that we weren't intending to eat, or we ate the wrong foods, and blah, 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 all that. So the way that we want to work on this is we also want to work on trying to learn to manage our emotions a little bit better. And the way that we can do this is if we know that we tend to get stressed out, then we need to set up things in our life so that we can prevent turning to food as the answer. So if you know that boredom is one of the reasons that you tend to eat in the evening, so boredom can be an emotion. If you get bored in the afternoons, and a lot of times you fill that boredom with a bucket or a Ben & Jerry's ice cream, then you need to instill in your life ways to compensate for that boredom, ways that are going to be healthy for you. So what can you do instead of eating the ice cream that will keep you from being bored? And that might be, as cliche as it sounds, it might be a walk. A walk through your neighborhood is going to get you out, get you some fresh air, get your mind away from the food, and keep you from being bored. And again, you'll be out away from your house too, away from the food itself. The same thing if you get sad and you tend to turn to food. So what can you do? What can you have already pre-programmed to do in times that you feel sad? It might be that you call a friend or you call a family member that you can talk to about this sad situation, or about something else that's going to turn your spirits around a little bit. So this is what it's all about. It's about kind of setting up your lifestyle so that you know where these problem areas are for you, these craving areas are, and instead of trying to turn to these triggers for cravings, then you've already got things set up in place so that you can learn to prevent, and you can do something else instead. So again, food cravings can be very strong, and a lot of times they're tied to these issues that we have. Whether it's hunger, it's your emotions, whether it's that you're depriving yourself, whatever the reason. So usually it's one of those. So again, practice these skills we're talking about here. I really hope they help you with trying to overcome some of the cravings, the food cravings that you're experiencing yourself. And the one thing I want to add to is, if you're having a food craving, there is nothing wrong with enjoying a food from time to time. If you have an intense craving for chocolate, have some chocolate. It's not going to be the end of the world, but this is all about making small changes. So you wouldn't want to turn to chocolate every single time. And you probably would want to be more mindful of eating chocolate. So let's make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. You're not doing it because you're sad, you're lonely, you're bored, or you're starving. You're doing it because you want a piece of chocolate and you really enjoy chocolate. And it's as simple as that. So again, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.